Welcome to an advanced Latin lesson on Catullus 101. Today's lesson will concern this poem that you see in front of you. The student's objective is to translate the poem into good English. In order to create an authentic learning experience, we decided to have a little fun with this poem. So the first thing we did is we emailed to the students an assignment. And the assignment packet was included in this email, but notice I told them to be sure their devices were charged and to bring their laptop so that they would be able to complete the assignment. To make this assignment authentic, I created a situation. The students were led to believe that the poem Catullus 101 was going to be read at his brother's funeral. This actually was a true poem written for his brother. Therefore, it helped the students greatly to know what was going on in the ancient Roman funeral practices. Therefore, before they could begin, the first thing they needed to do is they needed to research ancient Roman funerals. In order to do that, I gave them selected sites for their research, and on their packet they had a hard copy and a digital copy, and you could see where they could take notes. Then when they finished taking notes, their job was they were going to create a visual representation about 5 to 7 facts for each component of the funeral. Students were working on handheld devices and also laptops. So they came up, now the ones that were working on the handheld devices said it was harder to use mindmeister. So they decided to create a visual on paper, and there are some examples of these, and they were very proud of their work. This student, however, did create his mindmeister using his telephone. Here's an example of one of the students that used mindmeister who was on a laptop. And notice they have feast, procession, commemoration, cremation, burial, and eulogy. Probably the biggest change I would make to this lesson is if it could be done in a computer lab, that would be awesome so that everyone would feel more comfortable on the visual representation segment. One student asked to do Prezi. Here's an example of his lesson where he has the 5 components of the funeral. Once the students completed their visual representation and have a thorough understanding of the ancient Roman funerals, then they went here, and this is where they went to their formative assessment. This was the formative assessment on ancient Roman funerals. It was made with Google Forms, and I actually used I enabled flubaroo to grade it automatically. So once the students took their assessment, they would receive a score that comes from mine, that's the flubaroo grader, and it will tell them exactly what they made. If they made below an 80%, they were to come to me to get some notes on the chapter. So we knew that they understood the ancient Roman funerals. After the culture section, they went into phase 2, which was the translation. And of course, this was the most difficult for the students and required a lot of teacher interaction. However, I did allow them to use SPQR, which is an assistive technology that students were allowed to use. I had them read the poem, and then I broke the questions down. So the regular students had one set of questions, and these were just straight comprehension. And then the honor students had to answer more difficult questions that required greater critical thinking. And then finally, everyone had to translate. And notice they could use SPQR to parse anything that they needed in the translation. So here's an example of students using SPQR. SPQR can be downloaded to any iPhone, any iPad, any Android phone. It is available. And they can put in certain complex parts of the passage, and that will tell them how to translate it in the sentence. After the students finished the translation, then they were to create their product, which was a video presentation of the poem. They could only use 20 words or less, images, music, and voice, and they were to convey the meaning of the poem to the audience. Here's an example of this student who he is creating his video on PowerPoint using animation in order to convey the meaning. At the end of the lesson, students were to go here and they created a post-assessment assignment. So far, I've only had 9 students who have turned in the survey of the assessment. They all seem to really like the assignment. 11% weren't sure that the funeral was helpful. Favorite part of the lesson was the visual. The least favorite part of the lesson was the translation. And suggestions to improve the lesson, I had some good suggestions. A Latin to English vocabulary list would have been a good idea, and a guided translation. So I knew that they had problems on translation, but it was a great way to bring a difficult subject to life.